In September of 1990, I'd graduated the Phoenix Regional Police Academy. I was assigned to the Buckeye substation. MCSO at the time had a substation in Buckeye, and Deputy Ken Blair was my primary FTO.
Deputy Blair and I were partners for several years in the Buckeye area. He spent 22 years in the Air Force, and he was a first sergeant. And he was a first sergeant for the squadron that I was being assigned to at Luke Air Force Base when I was transitioning into the area. And I remember seeing his name on some of my paperwork, but he retired just as I arrived. So I actually didn't meet Ken until a year later when I got out of the Air Force and started with the Sheriff's Office.
Back in the early 90s, I was a qualified armed posseman also, and District 2 was my district of choice. So I would do patrol time out in District 2 after pulling a shift in dispatch. So I'd do my 8-hour shift in dispatch, and then I'd go out and do patrol in District 2. I was also the dispatcher on duty the night the incident occurred with Kenny Blair.
Ken was a pretty private person for the most part. And I think if you didn't know him, you would think he was a fairly serious kind of a guy, but he was not shy. He just kept a very professional look about him that intentionally. It was always his goal to have a really sharp uniform. He would, we used to give him grief because he wore these things that we would refer to as garters, but they were elastic straps that hooked to the back of your shirt and then to the top of your socks to hold your shirt tail in, so it would never be messed up. And so looking good was something that he would often say, "Oh, got to be looking good." Professional uniform, that was important to him. Service was important to him. Serving his country, the community, these things were important to Ken. But he was also kind of just a country boy, and always had a lot of funny, folksy sayings and phrases.
On the radio, on the dispatch side, we had what's called Blairisms, as we would call them. And I do recall a traffic stop one night that he was pulling over a vehicle. He gives a common, license plate and location of where he's at. And then he comes back and he says, "This car's gonna be full of gangbangers. You might wanna start me another unit." And then a couple minutes later he goes, "Keep those units coming. It's fixing to get ugly." And Ken was known just to pop up with what we ultimately called Blairisms on the radio at any given time.
One thing I noted in Deputy Blair in the first part of my training period was his dedication to the community. I was in awe about how he knew people by name, worked with the community members and the businesses, the local businesses. And not only did he work in the Buckeye area, he also called it home. He lived in the Buckeye area. He did teach me a lot of those very initial community-related skills in conducting police work and serving the community out there.
So Ken was probably one of the safest deputies to work around. His officer safety was really top-notch. I remember one time he made this traffic stop and I'd stopped to help him, and he was already up at the driver's window. And so I'd pulled up and I watched him talking to the person, and then he started coming back to his car. And he was doing everything absolutely by the book, stepping away, kind of walking backwards a little bit, keeping his eye on the driver. And then I happened to notice that this lady must have been, 75 years old or something. And I said, "Ken, I think you're going to be okay." And he just said, I don't want to develop bad habits." And so that just kind of showed, what the officer safety meant to him as far as just doing things the right way and, being safe.
It was a call-in. I didn't take the original call for service. That was one of our call takers. And it was a domestic disturbance. The girl was young. She was like 17, pregnant. And her husband, I guess, if I remember correctly, had been drinking and was hitting on her. and we kicked out the call like we normally kick out a call. And it was in his beat, so he responded. Him telling me that he was staging and he was going to wait for the other unit. And that's the last I talked to him. I think Ken would have done, or did, what any of our deputies would have done. I mean, he waited, he staged, he was waiting for the other unit. And then I had no more contact with him and couldn't raise him on the air. And that's when Troy managed to get on scene. But he saved a person's life, and I'd like to think that that's what any of our deputies would do.
What a lot of people don't know is we bid on patrol beats. We did back then, they may still. And Ken had come back to patrol from the detective unit right just before shift bid. And he took my beat.
Early on, when this whole process started, probably the biggest question that always popped in my mind was, who was Ken Blair? And it's kind of been a journey for me. It's been very emotional at times, talking to his wife, talking to people who had known him. It's been hard to do. Just figuring out who he was, because I didn't have the opportunity to know him personally. I never worked with him on a squad. I was in the district north of. Ken was District 2, I was District 3. With that, his death had a profound effect on my career. I remember coming in that evening. I was on midnight shift in District 3. Ken died on swing shift. District 2 was still investigating the scene, and when I got to work, I just remember how the quiet shock that was going on in the district. Normally we would have a briefing. That evening we didn't have a briefing at all. We were just told that Ken had been killed in the line of duty, and to get out on the road and start taking calls, both in District 3 and District 2, because what they had done in District 2 is pulled all their deputies off the road due to the emotions involved. We didn't want those guys out there on the road continuing to work with what was going on. So, all that was important, and, I'm one of those guys that, just really strongly believes in that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, if you've ever heard that statement. And it's just, to me, it's critical that we remember our past. And in law enforcement in particular, remembering those who, gave the ultimate sacrifice of their life in service of the community, and that's Ken.
I never fail to tell people the story of Ken Blair. It's important to me that people know who he was and how he operated, and when these things happen, they are impactful, not just to the people that are close, but the repercussions and the waves that just go out from that, they impact people, and there are lessons to be learned, and I've always shared those along the way.
To have his serial number on a tail number of our new helicopter is truly an honor of recognition. Not only is hopefully Ken watching over us these days, he cared about the community, he cared about this agency, he cared about law enforcement, and now he has another tool with honor of his number on that piece of equipment to watch over and serve the public.
To have something that people know that has a meaning. It's not just a number thrown on the side of a helicopter. This actually meant something. And to his family and to his friends and the ones who knew him, he's probably looking down saying, this is pretty cool.
I know numbering the helicopters started with Bill Coleman, and there's a number of interesting ties. Bill Coleman was also a squad mate of mine, and so it was pretty impactful to see his number put on a helicopter. And when they told me they were going to put Ken's number on a helicopter, that was really special. And when I was talking to Lieutenant Schoninger about it, I told him that I'd actually flown on Fox 1 to spread Ken's ashes. And then he said, wow, that's really incredible. He said, because we actually traded that helicopter in for this one. So.
You know, this helicopter, it's a game changer for our unit. We have a really good helicopter in the 407, but this helicopter here, you know, it's big, it's a twin engine. It gets us back to the hoist capability that we haven't had in decades. I don't think we've really had serious hoist capability. Old helicopter years ago we had that hoist, but it's just going to make our unit safer. The citizens of the county are going to have better service. And again, you know, remembering and memorializing guys like Ken Blair as part of, you know, issues like this. You know, this is the pride of the sheriff's office. It truly is. And it's got Ken Blair's serial number on it. You know, what more could you ask for with that?
This blood